Hey y'all, this is Moni.
And this is Kat.
Hey Kat. And this is the Fake Ass Book Club. Wait, can we both say it or no? Oh my gosh, welcome back you guys to the Fake Ass Book Club. This is your girl Moni.
And this is Kat.
What's up, Kat?
I just love you so much.
Oh
I'm
my
like
gosh, me
feeling
too.
an overwhelming sense of gratitude to help with all this anxiety I'm feeling. So
Well, cheers,
I'm just really
friend.
grateful to you. Oh, and just a side shout out to Kiara, Free Mind Studios. We did a gratitude painting this past week and you were in it.
What?
Yeah, I'm going to show it to you. I'm not finished with it, but like, yeah, you were in it. It's like the end of was right. You were there and you were there and you were there. Yeah, it was, I was grateful for my friends. So.
Oh, I am too. This is awesome. And we are here on Easter Sunday.
Christos Unestis.
So, yeah, is that Latin?
I think it's Greek.
Was it Greek?
I think
Okay.
it's Greek
Greek or Latin?
for Christ is risen.
Let's go. Congratulations.
Christ has died.
No.
Christ is risen. Christ will come again. I won't do the whole thing.
Wow. No, please don't. But that's for all of you guys celebrating Easter. You're welcome for that. Thank you, Kat. I forgot about that little song, that little ditty.
Oh my goodness, that's in there forever.
Oh my gosh. It really is. And I was like, okay, yeah, I remember
I could
that.
say a whole mass right now.
Let's not though, because I think we could maybe on Patreon one time. We could try to see. Okay.
Oh no, because women can't say mass.
But that's why we're doing on Patreon.
Oh, this would be so blasphemous.
Oh no.
Oh no.
All right, you guys. So as you can see, we're on one today. The sun is shining. We're excited. This is just
There's just so much going on. I feel like we're entering a season of healing, and I need it.
Agreed. I definitely need that too. So you guys, this book that we are reading or that we read this week is Nightcrawling by Leila Mottley. And I just want to give off the top a trigger warning for sexual content, language, violence, sex, yes.
Spoilers.
The whole, like, we're spoiling it all. We're talking about all of it. And a lot of it is very graphic. So you guys, if you're sensitive to these kind of things, I don't know why you listen to our show. But just know it's happening. We're going to talk about it in its entirety. So be prepared for that. And then I want to give you guys a little synopsis really quickly here. So, a New York Times bestseller, Oprah's Book Club selection, and Booker Prize nominee, Leila Mottley's debut novel, Nightcrawling, welcomes readers into Kiara Johnson's world in Oakland, California, where Black young adults experience joy, confusion, hope, and fear. As Kiara navigates the wounds of police sexual violence, adultification, and a family fractured by the criminal justice system. I feel like
It's going to be a lot of deep breaths.
I mean, I picked this book because I've seen so many accolades. Like, I've seen so many great reviews. And so when I say I had no idea what this book was about and how it took me out, I was not prepared, friends.
I told you yesterday, I thought this was going to be, I knew it was a coming of age novel. And when I heard the title Nightcrawling, it made me think of night crawlers, which is another word for worms. So I thought it was going to be like maybe growing up in the bayou or something, but it was not.
Growing up near worms?
I was not at all prepared for what I was getting into. I would have done a lot more self-care before.
Oh my God.
Because like this has had me wrecked emotionally a little bit. So
It was a lot, you guys. Like, it was a whole bunch.
It's a novel, it's fiction, but it's oh so real.
It's super real. And so I should, you know what, let's dedicate the episode real quick, you guys, before we jump right into it. Hands over your hearts, everyone. Thank you again for joining us for another episode of the Fake Ass Book Club, you guys. We are super excited to be here as always. We want to thank our patrons. You guys are the actual and literal best. Also, any and all of our supporters, we want to thank you for continuing to join us and, encouraging us to continue on making content. Also, I think I would like to dedicate this episode to, actually, I'm going to dedicate it to Tinika. Tinika Gives Life. I'll leave her stuff in our notes or whatever, but this is her shop and we're able to rent this space from her. I'm super grateful. I'm so excited that we have our own space that we can share to create this content, like to have like a little home. So thank you for allowing us to be here, Thank you. What about you, friend?
Yes, and that dedication, because man, I love spending money with Black women.
I
It's my
know.
favorite.
It is.
My dedication this week is going out to the women's LSU basketball team. Congratulations, ladies. You did it. You
Round
got
of
the big
applause.
ring in front of all the scrutiny. And it kind of ties into a big theme of the book we read this week, where it just seems like we just want to be harder on Black and brown girls for some reason. So maybe we can get to the bottom of that. Dedication over.
Wow. I like that. That was very succinct, friend.
Thank you.
I definitely enjoyed that. That was definitely a theme, and I want to give you guys a little bit about the author too before we get started, because Leila Mottley, she's a writer and educator and community advocate. She's based in Oakland, California. She received her Master's of Fine Art in Creative Writing from Mills College and has been awarded fellowships from Cave Canem, Callaloo, and the Hurston Wright Foundation. Motley's work has been published in a literary journal and many anthologies, including The Rumpus, The Catapult, and Best New Poets. And this is her first novel.
That's wild to me.
Listen,
because it was
impressed.
So well written.
And she's so cute too. I have her picture here. She's
Yes.
gorgeous. Giving very natural beauty. The curls, the eyes. I mean, she's giving it all to us. So, there's just a lot to unpack here, friends. So I think it's probably a good idea to do the quick run through, and then we can kind of hone in on some of the different points.
It's a big story, guys.
Oh, my
okay,
goodness, friend.
so
I know you're gonna
you
get us
already
right.
said our main character is Kiara Johnson.
Yes, it is.
She's on the edge of 17. Like, the whole time I was reading this, I kept thinking about that song, the Stevie Nicks song, Edge of 17. No?
I mean, if I heard it.
It's sampled in
like Stevie Nicks,
Bootylicious.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay,
Just like the wild wing does.
Oh,
Sings
I know that
song, sounds
song.
like she's singing. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Yeah, that song, it's about being
I
on the
didn't
edge
know
of
that.
17.
Oh.
It's a vibe.
Okay.
So, but we're starting with her. So basically her life story is her parents fell in love, got married in Oakland. It started out very idyllic, just a happy Black family, but her dad was one of the Black Panthers. He was targeted by the police, unjustly locked up, got a kidney or prostate cancer, untreated in prison. And so he ends up dying. And once he's gone, mama loses her way, gets strung out on that stuff. And we'll say she kills her 3-year-old sister and the mother tries to take her own life. And so her big brother had just turned 18, so he raises her as long as he can, but that starts to wear down on him, and he decides to leave this life through rap, and that's not paying the bills. So Kia tries to get a job. She's under 18, so she can't work a lot of places. She doesn't have a resume. She dropped out of high school. So one day when she's just feeling lost, she gets drunk at a friend's strip club that she went in to try to get a job at. And she gets drunker than she knows because she's not experienced with drinking, and is picked up by one of the patrons there, taken to a rooftop. And I mean, it could be categorized as sexual assault because there was no consent. He just went up in there. And after that, he just hands her some money that was in his pocket because he just assumed she was a prostitute. And after that, she was like, hey, I need money because I'm about to be evicted. So she starts walking the streets. And while she's there, she meets another sex worker named Camilla, who tries to get her on with her pimp. She decides not to go the pimp route, but later on she is assaulted while she's walking the streets and is saved by a police officer who then starts trafficking her through the police department. She also at this time takes in her next door neighbor, Trevor, who is a 9-year-old boy whose mom is strung out and hasn't been home in weeks. During her time with serving the police department, one of the police officers kills himself and names her in the suicide note because he feels so guilty about what he did. In the meantime, everyone keeps blaming her for making these choices. That got on my nerves. Marco gets locked up because he starts selling hard drugs to pay for his music career. Trevor is jumped and taken by CPS. The lawyer that works for her pro bono, because there's an investigation in the police department after the officer kills himself, tries to groom her for a grand jury. It's a massive failure. The U.S. Justice Department is not set up for women or black people. And she, her best friend, neighborhood best friend, are able to reconcile because her best friend also kind of lost her sister to the life. And they were able to reconcile and hook up. Did I do it?
You did it. High five, friend.
Thank
Good
you.
job. Yay. That was a whole bunch. Okay. So that is like the
So it was
structure.
not in the bayou.
No. There were no
It was
worms.
in the streets of Oakland.
No.
Bitch.
She was Nightcrawling, okay?
Yeah.
I said,
I'd never heard that term before.
Me either. So, and so we were kind of talking about before we started recording, there's so many different themes. So, you have family dynamics. Like you talked about how the parents met and it was an idyllic situation. And then they have these kids. And because he's politically involved and it's, it's pro-black and stuff, he was targeted, and how that black man just kind of got extracted from the family and how things fell apart after that, which leads into like the grief and loss factor.
That no one ever gets to recover from.
That nobody gets to recover from. It just felt like dominoes falling, like the whole time. And so,
it's a perfect abuse cycle. I keep saying I want to visualize the abuse cycle. I had to learn about the abuse cycle when I was escaping my marriage, and it's crazy how you're like, what? Because I think there's a part in the book when they tell her, like, for girls like you who are trafficked, and she's like, I'm not trafficked. And it's like, yeah. And then when we discussed Miss Pat's book, like a lot of times when you're in these abuse cycles, you don't see yourself in an abuse cycle.
No.
It's just life as it's happening to you.
Absolutely.
And so getting out of that is so deliberate and hard and takes so much work that a lot of times you're just worn down so much from the abuse you can't do it.
So the audiobook is what we listened to, right? I know you did. I loved the voice actor. Joynice Abbott Pratt. Shout out to you. Loved it. It was a 10-hour.
Because I thought about speeding it up, but I really enjoyed her performance. I didn't want to ruin it. I wanted to get all the beats and everything.
It was very, very good.
Maybe I should have, and I wouldn't have felt so much.
Because I can imagine it being a little bit
I got all
slower.
the feelings.
So I got done in about 7 hours when it was like a 10-hour thing.
Oh,
I listened at a time and a half or whatever. But, I want to play a clip, though, just really quickly if we can, because I was really, at the end of the audiobook, she has an author's note that I thought was really powerful. It just sets the tone for like really being able to understand the story. So we're going to play this real quick and then come right back.
As I wanted to write a story of my city, but I also wanted to explore what it would mean for this to happen to a young Black woman, for this case to be put in the narrative control of a survivor, for there to be a world beyond the headline, and for readers to have access to this world. The stories of Black women and queer and trans folks are not often represented in the narratives of violence we see protested, written about, and amplified in most movements. But that does not erase their existence. I wanted to write a story that would reflect the fear and danger that comes with Black womanhood and the adultification of Black girls, while also recognizing that Kiara, like so many of us who find ourselves in circumstances that feel impossible to survive, is still capable of joy and love.
Right?
And it's okay. So for people who don't know this about me, I did an internship with the organization that helps girls or people, because it doesn't just happen to girls, but that's just the majority of the population of people who are trafficked are women and girls. But it's an organization that helps people to recover from being trafficked. And it's irritating to me because so often it's a false narrative that's pushed in the press on how to avoid being trafficked, because what they're really describing is not being kidnapped. But most people who are trafficked are very vulnerable people, like the people in this book who see themselves as having no other choices to survive.
Yeah.
Or they're seduced into it. Like they think this person is actually someone who cares about them. Because usually if someone is a pimp, like someone we would consider a pimp, that person considers that person their man.
Oh, yeah.
Or, and a third of people who are trafficked by a family member.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important. I think it's the work she did to research to make this accurate. And I think that's why I was so triggered, because it's like, oh, this really happens. Down to there was a book called Girls Like Us that was written by a woman who had been in the life, and she works now to help women and, people get out of it. And she was just, same thing when they were working with a lawyer to try to help a girl testify for a grand jury. And it went exactly like that, where it was just like, did she read that book? It was like beat for beat exactly what happened. Down to, you need to wear these clothes. Like you showed up, because what other clothes do you have?
Right.
When she described like how she didn't even realize how bruised she was, and how she never actually even feels like today I was wearing really soft clothing, like how she didn't have nothing in her life is soft.
Aw. What a big contrast too. So let's start off sort of with the grief and loss, because there's a lot of that. So, I talked about the dad not being in there. He died and stuff, and then because we were discussing before, so like there is a part in the book, like you keep hearing her alluding to this sibling that passed away and that the mom killed the sibling, but it was like how, like what happened. So it takes a while in the story before we get to that point. And it seems like the story is they live in these rundown apartments, right? And it's poorly, if you can imagine, poorly managed. She refers to this swimming pool that they have there as the shit pool, because there's shit in the pool.
Yeah.
And then they're just dumping all these chemicals in it just to kind of like offset
Cover it up. Yeah, but it's like a bunch of dog poo.
Gross, right?
Yeah.
And so
it's a hazard.
It's definitely a hazard, but it sounds like the mom, I don't know if she was high or what was going on, but
it gives the impression that it just coincided on the same day she decided to take her life. Like because I couldn't tell if she'd already slit her wrist before the baby drowned, or I don't know what the
sequence of events,
the timeline was, but it's two things that the property owners could have been liable for, because the lock on her door didn't work. Mm-hmm. So that's wild, to pay rent somewhere where your lock doesn't work, and to also have an unlocked, uncovered pool that anyone could stumble into, and that being a huge liability. And the mama was wildin', like she wasn't like a hero of the story, but I felt like they were almost too hard on her and blaming her, like saying like she murdered the little girl.
Well, that was Kiara's narrative, and I do feel
Soraya.
The little girl was Soraya.
Yeah.
I do feel like when you hear, like what you're speaking about is Kiara's point of view, though. So from my 17-year-old self, I can totally feel like
how old was she when the baby died too?
Right, she was younger than that actually.
Yeah,
right.
when the baby died.
So she's a teenager. Yeah, it's your fault, ma.
I blame my mom for a lot of stuff now that I realize it's not her fault.
Exactly. So I think that story was happening from her standpoint only because it was like, yo, you're supposed to be in charge. Like, I think, as a child in your mind, you're like, you're supposed to have control of all this. There's no way for her to really take in the trauma and loss and grief that she was having just from losing her husband. She never planned on being a single mom. She picked this man. Like she made it seem like it was very intentional. Yeah, because she was underage when she saw Kiara's dad at first, and then years later they reconnected. She saw him and was like, "Yeah, that's my man. Now. We go together.
I choose you."
Okay, and so I just think the grief and loss of like this, the love of your life and the person you wanted to build your life with, and then like maybe not having that support, because I don't remember hearing about any of her other family. Mm-hmm. You don't hear, you know what I'm saying? So
you only hear about Uncle Ty. Yeah, I left him out of the thing because he was the uncle who quote unquote made it, and he just cut ties. And I mean, I couldn't even totally be mad at him for that. No, like he's like, I got my own family now, and your mama's crazy.
And so what am I supposed to really do? Yeah. But then it's like, so that's hard too. That is definitely a grief too, because right, like you're seeing a family member that you love deciding to walk away, and in your mind, especially as a child, you're like, this seems pretty simple. We need your help, and you're not here helping us.
Well, and that was the problem she had with Marcus too, where it's just kind of like,
let's talk about that,
because I wanted to fight Marcus.
So Marcus was her brother. And it kind of ties into the theme of just
But
familial.
I still felt bad
relationship.
for him too.
Of
Like
course.
he's not supposed to have to do all that.
It's never that simple. Like that's the point. It's like you can hate
Yeah.
people, but like stuff happens, and it affects the way you move. Like
What?
he was
No, I got mad at
thrusted-
him when he started judging her for how she was surviving and
course.
keeping him afloat.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
want to because I wrote it down. I had to write it down. People are always judging the choices they never had to make.
Yeah.
You've
Situations you've never had to be in.
Never had to make this choice. I feel like that was in Little Fires Everywhere, where she was like, "You didn't make good choices. You had good choices."
Yeah, there's a difference.
There is a big difference. And I don't know what, when everyone kept saying that to Kiara, like, well, you could have made different choices. I don't agree with all your choices. Everyone is so condescending. It's like, when have you ever had to decide between selling your body and starving?
I don't know. And that's the thing too, a lot of the time when you feel like this is a resource that I have access to that people are willing to pay for. I mean, was she supposed to start her rap career? You know what I mean? Like, was she supposed to? And the thing is, they showed, it was like they sort of illustrated that she was going to CVS. She was going to these places. And some of it was like, you don't have anybody to help you do a resume. You don't have the support.
Right.
Like some of that.
She
some
didn't
of
have
these basic
internet.
skills.
She didn't have a smartphone.
Nope.
Because like for most people who have a smartphone, the smartphone you got was from your parents.
Yeah. And she was also taken care of. She felt obligated to take care of Trevor, the little kid whose mom was a crackhead.
because she knows what it is. Like everybody needs somebody. Like this idea of like pull yourself by your bootstraps and do it yourself. It's like that's bullshit. I am because we are.
Yeah.
Like
Boom, I
we
like
all
that.
need each other. So this idea of this little boy who's just alone in the world, and she saw him be born. That was a very powerful scene.
Oh God.
I won't get all into it, but can I just talk about how beautifully written this book is?
It was very lyrical. So like on top of the voice actor being very, very good, I felt like, and like really nailing the vernacular and like the speech, because it felt very
And
authentic.
thoughts, because a lot of it was her
Yes,
thoughts.
It was she did a really, really great job. But I agree that it was just
It's like the opposite of
poetry.
Michael Eric Dyson.
Why do you keep saying that man's name wrong? You hate him. I'm
is
gonna
it?
wait. No, because you do this to me. You can do it.
No, I'm gonna cheat.
I'm
What
not
is
gonna tell you.
the dude who wrote Milk in My Coffee? Eric Michael Dyson?
Nope. Where are we getting Dyson from? Are we doing that because what are those vacuum cleaners? Eric Jerome.
Arab Jerome Dickey. Jeepers. So I feel like this book, like the style of writing is the opposite of the way he writes, which is no idea of how women think. And
Okay.
this is specifically how women and girls think, which is kind of a constant state of fear.
Yeah, they really did tap into that. Yeah, I don't know, and I like that you're saying like you can't do it alone. The sense of community was an important theme too, because like she felt this sort of maternal instinct to protect this child because she knew what it felt like to be left alone.
And felt guilty about not being able to protect Soraya because they even
Absolutely.
The book, to me, because painting was a big theme of the book and color, like her description of color was amazing. Like I could see and smell everything. Like she just perfectly laid it out. And I almost wish I could go back and reread it and write down every color in order, because I feel like she made this perfect rainbow of everyone was every different color.
I like that. You should do a painting.
I mean, maybe.
Pretty inspirational.
But also the use of symbolism, because she's used like here we are on Easter Sunday, and it was sort of a when she first had the encounter with Polka Dot Ty, is what she called the guy who just took her out of the strip club and had sex with her on a rooftop. She kind of stepped into a pond, and I was like, that was kind of her first baptism into the life.
Yeah.
And then when she jumped into the pool with Trevor on his birthday, that was like her second baptism out of it. Because I noticed after that, she never had sex for money after that.
Yeah.
And it was, there was so much symmetry. To me, it was like the way you approach a painting. There was symmetry and color and light and harmony.
Yeah.
And the use of when she went to visit her mother, and she passed through this arch that she could tell used to be like a beautiful, like sort of like garden archway, and it had decayed, and that kind of was the symmetry of her relationship with her mom, where it was this, it started out as this beautiful thing and then became this really sad, tragic relationship.
Ugh, yeah. It was a lot. It was a lot. It was a heavy book. I really like, prepare yourself if you're gonna listen to this. That it's yeah, it goes there. It definitely goes there. But what I also like is that she highlights how these characters find joy.
Yes.
So I love that you get a sense of like the joy that she felt even just interacting with Trevor and taking care of him and watching him grow, and like them playing ball together, and her being interested in his life. Excuse me, and also her relationship with, what's her friend's name? Ale. Yes, Ale. Like
I love how she described Ale.
I did too.
Because to me, it was foreshadowing what ended up happening at the end, which is they kind of fall in love.
Yeah, they definitely.
Because to me, I already thought they were a couple.
I did too, because the way she talked about her,
yeah,
it was like, you love her.
Yeah, big time. So, and she loves you.
Yeah. You love each other.
Because you knew who you would call when you were starving. Like there was a point where she was literally starving. Here's the other thing. This makes a big case for UBI, which is universal basic income, which is what Martin Luther King was fighting for. He was fighting for like the civil rights stuff, but a big part of the abuse cycle is financial abuse. And
look at her whole situation. It was like, yo,
it would have been so unnecessary if there was any kind of UBI, which is what most most modern countries have, because there's not enough. Everyone's like, get a job. There's not enough jobs to go around, and the jobs that do, they don't pay for life.
I can have 3 jobs and still not have enough to
And
survive.
here's what ends up, how many times when we were, because this reminded me a lot of The Deepest Well.
Yeah, ACEs.
Yeah, because I was like, her ACE score high.
Yeah.
It's very, very high. Like her risk for like physical ailments.
Well,
in the
say
future.
it real quick. So guys, if you didn't ever listen to that episode, this book basically was sort of
Dr. Nadine Burke Harris.
Yes, thank you for remembering that. My God. She sort of makes the through line of how your adverse childhood sort of experiences translate into like your physical and mental well-being or lack thereof.
Yeah, your likelihood of getting heart disease, stroke,
all of the things.
Everything. Like the mind suffers and the body cries out.
Yeah.
And it's,
oh my gosh. Yeah.
So this reminded me of every bad thing I've ever read or experienced. This book triggered all of it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was brutal.
So it's like, this is why I'm scared to have a daughter. we just talked about this last episode. It is, and I feel like too,
because even Ale, let's talk about Ale's sister. Was it Kiara?
I don't remember her name.
She had a sister who kind of got into the life where she was groomed, and then all of a sudden she's just gone. They don't even know what happened to her. Just one day she didn't come home from school. No, I cannot.
And that happens
all the time. Because you would think like we expect to see it from girls like Kiara Johnson, because her life has gone to shit. But this happens to girls from good families. Like that was the thing I learned like doing my internship. Yeah, quote unquote good families. Like the reason why the book was called Girls Like Us is because as a society we've just assumed that these girls, like, they're hopeless anyway.
Right, so of course.
They're not girls. They were like the girls that R. Kelly abused. Where like they did the same thing. Like they went after him originally, and when there was a grand jury, he wasn't indicted because, and the people who were on the grand jury were like, well, I didn't like her. I didn't like the way she talked. I didn't believe her. Like they just don't see them as, and at the end when she's testifying, she was like, I was a child. Like she didn't even really, because she felt so, because she's been performing as an adult. Like at 17, think of your 17-year-old self.
I mean, and I knew stuff, but also too, it's just like the lived experience that you have as a 17-year-old versus being an adult is just so different. And like, it's the power dynamics. I think that's the thing that was really jarring about her having these interactions with the police and like, being asked, well, why didn't you just leave? You mean a room full of police officers with loaded guns?
That can arrest you? I don't know why she didn't bring that up when she went home with the one officer.
Mean?
It's like there's so much implicit violence suggested in all of this that's what's not being addressed. It's like that's why her internal dialogue was so good, because it is always like mitigating, like just the same way they're like, oh, don't go to the bathroom by yourself. Why? It's like, well, we don't want you murder craped.
Right.
Like that's the underlying subtext.
Yeah, basically. That's what it is. So yeah, I just
all
thought,
over the world.
right. This isn't like specific to Oakland.
Yeah,
like, this
it's
is
not
a
specific, but I mean,
situation.
but let's talk about Oakland pimps real quick.
Wow.
Because
Pimps is,
you know what this really made me think of? Like a Donald Goines Iceberg Slim type novel.
we have to read one of his
At least
books.
Pimp.
We need
Because
to
that's
do
his
it.
autobiography, and that one's real. A lot of his
Let's
stuff
do
was
it.
novelizations of like the street life stuff. But to me, this was like a Donald Goines from one of the hoes perspective.
Yeah.
And whereas when I'm just saying hoes because that's how they're referred to in the book, but these are women.
Mm-hmm.
And even he talks about how the only people who can pimp are men who hate women. Like you have to, there's no other way to do it. Like you can't love and respect women and do what these people are doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Or you have to, at the very least, I mean, even if it's not resonating in your mind as hate, it's like this is the order of things. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm
Pimps up, hoes down. And if
Yeah,
that
like,
bitch
I'm
can't
a
swim,
man- yeah.
she's bound to drown.
oh shit. Yeah, that, you know, I think there's a certain level of like, you know, this is my position. Like it's my job to like shepherd over these hoes. You know what I mean? Me being the shepherd that I am. I mean, it is Easter. So, I mean, you know what I mean? Just to put that all together.
How much did you love that scene with Devon when he was in the king bed with all the hoes and
That was
trying
really,
to...
really fun. That was, so what was her friend's name?
Camilla.
Camilla. Let's talk about her real
Camilla
quick.
was fascinating. Can I tell you too how when I was doing the like, because you know I love accuracy. Like fallacies irritate me so much. Like the reality of human sex trafficking is that people who are LGBTQ are so much more vulnerable. And Camilla, we only get because let's talk about the staggered nature of the timeline. She doesn't reveal everything in order. I gave everything in order at the top.
Yeah.
Of the thing, but as she goes along, she reveals more and more, and so we find out Camilla is actually a trans woman.
Yeah.
And just about how for so many trans women, like this is the only, wasn't that in Sex and Love Around the World in India? That was the only work a lot of trans women there could get with sex work, even though like it's like I have a master's degree in engineering, but I can only
But you a hoe now.
because you
don't
don't go
in
into
either way.
the gender boxes the way I want you to.
Exactly.
But
I'll
yeah,
pay you,
Camilla was fast. And also in these things, because we saw it with, who's the rich dude who just got locked up?
In real life?
In real life. Well, and
Lots?
even,
I don't know.
dang it, I'll have to look it up later. But he was the one who, like Prince Andrew, because he killed himself in
got
prison. I'm going to look it
Are you
up
talking
later.
about the Epstein guy?
Yes, thank you.
okay,
Yes,
okay.
that's exactly who I was thinking about.
yeah.
But the chick who worked with him,
Oh, she's got a fancy.
Ingrid, I couldn't say it, but whoever she was,
Yeah.
but she was brought up on charges too because you're the bottom bitch who brings the other hoes in and makes them feel safe, and that's kind of what Camilla was. She was the recruiter, where she's like, "Hey, me," you know, she was just making her feel. Where it's like, we'll be a family. Same thing with Girls Gone Wild. They would have women go out and get the girls to do that stuff so that you feel safe. So look out, it's not just men. Everything's out to get you.
It basically it is. But let's talk about it though, because I do feel like even though those relationships are sort of predatory, right? Because I mean, like Camilla's looking to recruit new girls because for her to stay relevant and stay protected, because you probably do need additional protection when you are a trans woman out here in sex work because they're more likely to die.
And can we tell you how like a lot of the girls who testified against R. Kelly, they were scared for their lives because they would see girls disappear?
Oh wow.
You know what I mean? Like, and no one cares because of how we view sex workers as
It's
a
like
society.
she wanted it anyway. And
Right.
so why
That's
was
what she
doing
gets for
that
being a
she should've
hoe.
did? Right.
She should have
And
made
it's like-
different choices.
Right.
And
it's
so
like-
a part of this is able to exist because of how we view sex and sex work. If we saw these as like, oh, these are valuable human beings who deserve rights and Social Security and health care.
And also too, I mean, even if you're just viewing sex work from the lens of just capitalism, like there is a demand for sex work.
It's high
Can
demand.
we fucking talk about that? Like they wouldn't exist.
I remember there was a brothel next door.
I do remember that.
And it was a bunch of white. And I remember thinking it's segregated because it was only older white men. I bet some of them were cops
Why aren't you a pimp?
and pastors.
You should have been a pimp.
I should have been a pimp. I could be rich.
You could be.
I'd be
rich.
so happy and rich, just human trafficking people.
Wow.
There's no downsides.
no downsides at all, guys. You know, just go ahead.
It
and
won't
do that.
corrupt my soul.
But it's funny how it's like you get judged really harshly for participating in it when you're the person providing the service. Yet
And
still, when you're
still-
the person who's actually purchasing the service or partaking in this act, it's like how somehow you're okay.
Yeah.
I don't get that.
That's why To Catch a Predator. Why is that not still a show?
I don't know.
Remember how many
that was
people?
iconic.
Remember so many people would show up to the house. Sometimes there'd be dudes coming at the same time.
Yeah, it was
and they'd
really
have to
bad.
be like, it was that
Y'all all going to jail, just stand in line
to fuck a 13-year-old.
Yeah. Oh no, I thought that they were. No, you didn't.
No,
So
you didn't. We got the receipts right here.
And that's the other part too, like that underage fetish, like that inexperienced, like wanting somebody inexperienced, wanting somebody not to know how terrible you are at the act of sex.
Or how many
Or
people
the
just
power.
wanted to talk to her. I've heard
that
because
too.
I read a lot of hoe memoirs because once again, they're usually the best ones. They're very honest. And all over the world in different times. And that is what most sex workers say is that the men just want to talk.
Yeah. Even in Love is Sex Around the World, you saw that. I remember the Japanese lady talking about that.
You want someone who won't judge you because it's like, oh, well, I don't care what
'Cause I
you
don't give a
think because
damn.
I don't even, right. And no one will believe you anyway.
If you say it right. So just get
Because that's
it's
just a
therapy.
whore. It's just a whore.
Wow.
And it's just like, okay.
Yeah. But they seem like a necessary evil. So for as much as you want to put them in a space where it's like, oh my God, they're gross. It's like, but also you made them, you're making them who they are because there's a demand for it.
There
To me, I feel like,
is.
well, let's talk about the demand for it.
Oh, well,
though.
let's talk about slavery and about how much of that was motivated by sexual access. I brought it up. Bam, 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 bam.
Wow.
Because a lot of this was
Wow.
giving Rufus, too.
Wow.
Where it's just like, oh, I still want you to like me, but...
What's Rufus?
Oh, sorry. So
you haven't
Rufus
seen it.
was the antagonist in Kindred, Octavius Butler's Kindred.
Yeah.
And he was the slave master on the plantation, and he was just craping away. But he still
It
wanted
was his right.
the respect and love of the.
It's like you're mad at me because I'm a white man that can rape you. Like, I mean, you're still here.
I could be so much meaner to you.
Yeah, like,
I
what do
didn't
you
even
want me
have
to
to tip you off about the
do?
raid. I could have, because that's the thing that is true. She never got arrested.
No, she did.
But here's the other thing: they don't want you arrested because guess what's going to shows up on your arrest record? That'll be your birthday.
Yeah, that part. Oh yeah, let's talk about that.
So there
'Cause
would
they
be,
knew.
they knew, and that was what they got off on a technicality in the indictment, saying that like she never told them how old she was.
So because they didn't directly say what the jury decided, what do you think happened?
I think it was just, well, for me, I don't. Have you ever sat on a jury?
No.
I've had
never
plenty
been
of jury
selected.
summons. I've had summons, but I've never been selected to be on a jury. Most juries are white. And they see these girls, and once again, it's like that's just a teen prostitute who wanted to be out here, be loose. And she just kind of,
There's no relating. There's no relating because
Nothing.
you can't understand you can't even understand her background.
It's like, why didn't you just stay in high school? Because to me, that was something that was kind of glossed over as to why she left high school. But if her high school experience is, because here's another thing, it feels unrelated, but because I think she told the story without being direct about it, every aspect of U.S. culture is set up for these girls to fail, including high school. And so when you see people advocating for the voucher program, that's to take public dollars away from public schools and put them in private schools. And so that people like this can continue to suffer, because there should have been in good schools, there's people who identify girls like this and give intervention and help.
Right.
I have to assume that whatever school she was going in Oakland didn't provide that.
Oh no.
But there should be sort of universal funding of schools so that we don't have good white schools and bad Black schools.
Basically what it
because
comes
that's
down
what we've accepted as a society, and then we feel like it's like, okay, well then
Why are we giving money to these bad schools?
and they
that are
call
failing?
it school choice, which sounds great, but it really just it funnels money away from it funnels resources away from people who are really at risk. And also demonizing the idea of welfare, universal basic income, all of those things where like we look down on people who get food stamps. We look down on people who get assistance. It's like these aren't lesser people.
I mean, are companies lesser when they accept corporate welfare?
Once again, it's
the
not
government
framed that
subsidizes-
way.
Exactly.
It's
the
a conservative. It's the narrative. It's the media. It's how it's presented. It's Vernon knocking her door like, I'm gonna put you
Yeah.
out. It's
Yeah.
everyone coming for her all the time and then telling her to make different choices. So And who knows what she may have experienced in school. I've heard of girls getting sexually assaulted at school by teachers. So who knows what could have happened? Like, there's so many, especially when you don't have your parents, when you don't have clean clothes. Going to school without clean clothes is very difficult.
Yeah. Miss Pat talks about that.
Yeah, she does.
You know what I mean? And hopefully you find, like you say, like somebody who's there because they care about these kids and, you know, they step in on your behalf to either help you or advocate for you. Or, I mean, like you said, I mean, I think it was a failure of the system. And I mean, well, no, it's not a failure of the system. The system's working perfectly. You're right. The system is broken. So it highlights
the system's not broken. It's working perfectly.
Okay, well, say it how I'm supposed to say it. You know what I'm trying to say. You keep telling me no. So say it how I'm supposed to say it, friend.
The system is set up to break you.
Yeah.
So the system is working perfectly. Yeah. The police department, the public schools, the housing, you know, the HUD, everything is working perfectly to keep resources out of brown hands.
Yeah, definitely. And then let's judge the people once they're, you know, in a desperate situation, which, like you said, half of the people who are, you know, whether you're the juror or whatever, just observing this
or the lawyer,
it's kind of like you're not looking at this person like they're a victim because you figure, okay, well, you could have done all these other things, but it's like you've never had to feel this unprotected. You've never had to be this vulnerable. You've never felt like, okay, I need to protect this person. You know, even the idea of her protecting her brother, Marcus and stuff, and him wanting to pursue his rap career because he saw his uncle get a contract and like make this money. And I guess the uncle sort of like, you know, would pick him up and do stuff with him and kind of show him like before he actually made it, you know, air quotes made it or whatever, as an artist or whatever, rap artist, it kind of made him feel like, okay, I can do this. And it made me think about the representation. Like a lot of communities that lack resources, a lot of the time, like if you wonder why does everybody want to be a rapper? Why does everybody want to be an artist? It's because a lot of times that's the only fucking out. Like those are the only successful people you see. The ones trafficking drugs, they're the ones with the resources. Like when you're in a resource starved and deprived community, and the people that you see that you feel like are coming up that are doing well, you know, here's the blueprint for that. It's never usually anything great.
It feels like an escape.
It feels like an escape. It feels better than just, you know, drug addicted parents or, you know, whatever. And even if it's not that, just, you know, your parents
or jobs that don't pay you enough to live,
you know, you
slave you a slave wage.
Exactly. You're not making a living.
Oh, because it's modern sharecropping. Is ultimately what we're doing now.
It's real sad.
Where you're never going to get ahead.
It's like, yeah, keep going, girl. Just keep going. You know what I mean?
It's like, why don't you get a side gig? Yeah. Why don't you just send it?
I have to, and it's not working.
And she's like, yeah, I don't have a car. Oh, how about what was it? Cole's girlfriend, Shauna. She broke my heart
Cole,
too.
Who was Cole?
Cole was Marcus's friend.
Yes,
he was doing music with, and he had a baby mama who was wildly depressed. That was the thing too. There was just sort of everyone was depressed.
Everybody was sad.
Everyone had a baseline depression that because I think there was the writing was so subtle. She never came out and said, "Hey, I might be depressed," but there was something where she just said she hadn't showered in a couple days. That's a pretty good sign you're depressed.
And you're just walking around wailing.
Yeah. Or like she said, that woman she saw on the bus who was just talking to herself and stuff, and she's like, "I don't want that to be my future."
Yeah. We're just staring at each other.
We are. It's just sad. So sad. Oh, can I also talk about the symbolism? Because she's so good at creating these visuals that echo what's going on. So when she made this giant pancake with Trevor.
Oh, that was cute.
And it split in half. And I was like, oh, shit, she was about to be separated from Trevor. That was, you caught it. That was some heavy foreshadowing. And I thought it was going to be when Dee came. That was Trevor's mom's name was Dee. I thought she was going to come back to take him.
Right.
She didn't make an appearance. We talked about that. I just went to a funeral thing yesterday and saw some family. And that happened in my own family. My grandmother had taken in a family member. Never finalized like the adoption. And so she wasn't the legal guardian. But after a couple years, the mom came back and got her because she wasn't able to get welfare without the daughter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
like,
so
I need you for this.
Yeah. And so once again, if there's UBI, because quite honestly, people will be like, well, what if people spend it on drugs? Then they spend it on drugs.
They're going to spend it on drugs anyway.
Yeah.
And then maybe we should have better programs or some other kind of like interventions that can help.
Another thing too, that the Hershey boarding house model, that works really good for unhoused youth.
What is that?
So the guy who actually made the Hershey company and stuff like that, he and his wife were really into philanthropy and set up these boarding houses for homeless children, basically.
Oh, really?
Because like this has been a societal problem for quite some time. Really? And so because you still need an education. You're not going to be able to move in society without one. And you need direction as a child.
Yeah. Especially if you're not getting it at home. And you can't assume that everybody is. Like, that's the thing.
Especially if you're forcing them to give birth because of our insane abortion laws.
Oh, my God.
So, and that's my whole thing. If you want to have forced birth laws, you have to have UBI because children are expensive. I don't know, Moni, are your kids expensive?
They're so expensive. They're the reason why I have nothing. No, I'm just kidding.
There was like a meme
kidding.
where it
You
was
guys,
like,
I
was
love
the
you.
rich auntie rich or did she just not have kids?
That part. Because, and they make it to where even just your point about public education, like I don't even feel comfortable sending my kids. Like I'm making a concerted effort to send them to a private school because it's like I know where I live. These schools aren't what I know my kids fucking deserve. You know, at a certain point, and it's like, you know, and it can, and I mean, we could make do. I don't want to make it seem like it's even a failure on these institutions. It's the lack of support because, like you said, they're working the way they're supposed to, and because I know that I have to get them out of it.
Yeah,
like I can't actively participate. It's either that or move somewhere,
right,
where there's no people that look like me, and I'm not willing to do
and
that.
And that's a whole nother thing.
I don't want to spend all my time around people who don't understand why I'm in their neighborhood. Like, I don't want to do that.
I'm probably gonna take
it's stressful. Like, I mean, and the thing is that it's like
it is stressful
when you try to make that point to the people who are stressing you the fuck out or the system. And I mean, not even if it's them directly, but just like, hey, this is
it's wearing on me a little.
Because I can't be you, and because I celebrate when I get excited, and because my voice is loud sometimes, and my hair
is a little frizzy.
It's like, yo, I mean, I'm just trying to make it right now, so
like everybody else.
And I don't want that stress of my kids trying to assimilate so fucking hard to be something that they have to think about every single day. And so it definitely it's a taxing sort of proposition, but at the same time, you know, you do have to prepare your kids for it because that is exactly what it takes to be here and participate in our society. Because the standard, you know, even when we're talking about sportsmanship, like we talked about at the top of the show, I don't know, maybe that was on Patreon, but just sort of the idea of sportsmanship being like, you know, you walk in there, you don't, you know, you don't want to be too fancy in people's faces. You can't be too excited because
what I'd always hear is act like you've been there before,
right? And bitch, I ain't been here before though. You know what I mean?
And even if I had, I'm glad to be back.
And I'm glad to be back.
I'm very like I do tone myself down so much, and it doesn't feel good.
No, it doesn't.
Like I would like to. I love how Camilla put it, where she was like, I just wanted to be myself in my body and wear neon and move and it's not asking for too much.
No.
Like just to exist as I am in the world and being told like you're not being appropriate, you're making people uncomfortable, and it's like, okay, well, what about my comfort?
Right. That's the part. Nobody gives a fuck about that your comfort is not a factor.
It's secondary.
It's a non-factor.
Well, it's not a non-factor because they'll make attempts at it, but it's definitely secondary.
Right, which, like you said, second place is what now?
If you're not first, you're last.
You know what I'm
You hear that?
You know what I'm saying? So it's like it doesn't really matter. It doesn't. It doesn't matter is what we're saying. And so, like, yeah, that's difficult. But I think that it's easy to apply that label to somebody else. Like you don't, when you're not the person having to deal with the reality of what that feels like. It's easy to suppose how you should do things and why didn't you just? And it's just like anything. It's crazy because you know, you get critiqued about certain things, but it's like, bitch, you're not even in this though. And you're critiquing me and you're saying this is wrong. Like, you know, it's very interesting how people get real bold and real opinionated about some shit that they're not involved in.
I've been quoting Jay-Z a lot lately, which is weird because I'm not like a huge Jay-Z fan, but he's a good writer.
So what did he say?
Everybody can tell you how to do it. They never did it.
Boom.
Now these niggas is mad. Oh, they call me a candle or a camel. But I'm last in the drought.
Oh, like
what the fuck? I'm an animal? Half man, half mammal. My sign is a Sag. Just what I plan to do. Oh, don't be mad.
Little round of applause for Jay-Z's lyrics
Oh,
there, guys.
they want me to fall. That's from Already Home. I listen to that a lot when I run because it feels you need that at the end.
Okay, it's like I gotta get there.
I'm already
there.
home. I'm already home. Hey,
Listen.
I'm already home.
And I'm sure he knows it on a level. You know what I mean? Like, you've seen him go from dealing drugs to being in corporate America. And, like, that takes a certain skill set. And so I think that's
and
why.
not getting locked up. He never got locked up. That's amazing. I think that's why people really admire him as, like, Jay-Z's the guy.
This is why.
You sold drugs in New York and never got locked up?
Yeah.
And inspire people, because from what I can take from the story of his music, someone went to jail for him. Mm-hmm. And it's because he knew his family would be taken care of.
Was it a woman?
No.
Oh.
It might have been some along the way, though. Because that definitely happens. I don't completely admire how Jay-Z has moved with women. But
Well, I'm sure he doesn't now that he has 3 daughters.
Right.
Wait, is it 3?
Having daughters changes you. I think it's just 2.
2, 3. Okay, 3 kids.
Who knows, though? The Carters are secretive.
That's true.
That's none of our business.
Bonus kids, that's true.
He doesn't know how many daughters I have, and I don't necessarily know how many he has, so that's fair. But having daughters changes you, because this world is not favorable to tiny little brown girls.
They're just not.
And actually, I think I made a note that the police department, they took a page right out of the Catholic Church playbook of avoiding accountability.
Oh, do tell.
Because
wow,
the reason why Kia's life escalated, because this when we listened to the author's note, she said she based this on a real story that happened out there, and she was just fascinated with the girl that was behind all of this, because quite honestly, when I was reading the book Girls Like Us, this happens to girls as young as 9 years old, and they do have to be literally rescued, because they are in love with their pimps, because their household situations are so abusive. They are actually getting more nurturing from a pimp. So the idea that the police department found this girl on the street, because it looked like she was about to be murdered. Would you say Metal Mouth? That was the guy who was having his way with her in an alley when a police officer came up and got him off of Kia.
I wasn't sensing murder. I don't know.
Oh, to me, I got the idea that he was, because in these scenes, there are the people who are Johns, because he wasn't trying to pay her. It looked like he was going to kill and murder her.
Okay, yeah, I don't.
That's the feeling I got, because she was bleeding, because he was like banging her head into the wall. I got the feeling, my spider sense was telling me like he was gonna kill her. And so the police came, got him off of her. It's like, I don't want to see you around here no more. And then he saw her, got her number, and was like, oh yeah, we gonna have fun with you.
Yeah.
And so it just reminds me of so much stuff, because it's when men talk about, like, let's say, I'm going to speak very bluntly about running a train and it's usually on a bitch, because they don't want to call her a person or a woman or anything like that.
You can't look at her like that.
Right.
You might envision like somebody like your sister or mom.
You're someone who
or
deserves this because you're a sex worker.
You're a ho-ho.
And that would happen a lot when I was reading Girls Like Us, where if they were raped, the police wouldn't take it seriously. It was like, oh, you're just mad because you didn't get paid. Like, so, because sex workers are, I'm using the actual word now, but they're craped quite a bit. Like, that happens quite a lot.
But you also don't believe that that's a real thing, because it's your job to have sex. So you're like, what you mean you was raped? I mean, that's what you was there for.
You're
like,
just,
bitch.
yeah. And so she's constantly, so sometimes when she's with them, she gets paid. Sometimes she doesn't. It just depends on what they feel like, because they're just really exercising power over her, holding guns to her heads while they're having sex with her.
While you're watching, it was like, wow.
Yeah, like that was what was weird. Like, this would all happen in the company of everyone else, which was kind of like.
But that's the kind of, like, I think too, sometimes what's hard to understand is like the desire to, it's like, I want to make sure you're watching this so you can know, like, I'm a man, or I'm, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think a lot of this stuff ends up being like about ego and how you're perceived by your male peers, because you want to, I be dominating these hoes, you know what I'm saying? I be out here, you know what I'm saying?
And that's part of the abuse cycle.
Yeah,
because even the guy, because
like,
it's sad. It's the police officer who felt the only way out of it was to self-harm. And because what could he really do? Because the police, that's the biggest gang in the world. Like, if you snitch on them, you've lost everything. And that's why it's so difficult for, I've known like a lot of women over the years who suffered domestic violence from partners who are police. And who do you go to? Because they protect each other. They don't protect you. So, and it's the same thing as, like I said, like if your abuser is in the church, like no one is really trying to protect you.
So true, and it's your fault. Just know that.
What were you wearing?
Like, what
were you being all slutty?
Like, why were you? Yeah.
Have you ever had sex?
Did you
ever?
Smile at passive?
Do you enjoy sex? Well, then why were you upset? You were getting some. It's so hard for me to get it. Why aren't you happy that you're getting some?
It's just, and so I think that's the part that's the most damaging and the most hurtful, is that like when you're in these positions of power, like, why are you using it to do this, though? This is crazy. You could be using it for anything. Like, why is it something that we lift up culturally? Like, why is it something that is like, boys will be boys? Or, this is just how it is. It's like, it doesn't actually have to be. If everybody was shitty enough about it and upset enough about it.
Well, if we talked about what it is and how to recognize it and how to stop it and to how to... Because there has to be truth and reconciliation, ultimately, because I've participated in abuse cycles. It doesn't feel good, but it does feel good to get out of them. It's like it does feel bad to look back and be like, ooh, I was participating in that. That looks great. Like anti-gay stuff. Mm-hmm, like I was raised to be anti-gay. And so at a certain point, like I'm around too many gay people to even feel this way, honestly. Mm-hmm. Like I had to recognize this is something that's been handed to me that I can set down. Yeah. And so with the...
even in private, I don't have to uphold, even if you think, oh, it's just us. Like, yeah, but I still don't like talking like that. I don't like it. It's yucky to my spirit. Like, I don't like it. So I don't understand, even in private, why we need to speak about people in a certain way. Like, it's not necessary.
It's not necessary. Oh, because I kept bringing up the Jonathan Majors thing, right? Because it's an abuse cycle. Because I was like, can you, I'm like, even whatever's going on here, it's obviously abuse cycle. The police are getting called. Some people are going to the hospital. Something abusive is going on. Which, by
the way, my social media still hasn't showed me anything. Now, I haven't been on it. I'm not on it a bunch, but I still haven't came across anything that was like, here's what happened.
Shout out to Disney's
Don't
PR.
Know.
Or public relations.
Like, I know I'd have to Google it to read about it.
You'd have to really look it up.
It
looks to me like part of what went on there is the fact that he might have been on steroids for Creed and might still be doing. Because when I went down that rabbit hole, I found out that men are experiencing a lot of body dysmorphia. Like, we're used to hearing that about girls seeing social media and like having unrealistic expectations about what your body's supposed to look like. Men go through that too.
Oh, sure.
And it goes into this like hyper workout culture. And it wasn't a coincidence. I was actually talking about this with another lady I know. We noticed like our own abusive situations ramped up when our partners started using pre-workout, which has a lot of unnamed stuff in it. Like, it's a supplement, so they don't have to put everything that's in it.
Really?
And you would get stuff that felt like roid rages. Like, it would, like, the way they're described, and then the way that, like, we haven't gotten a clear story about Jonathan Majors or whatever, and peace to him and everyone else. I hope they can find some,
a resolution. Something.
Yeah, something. But honestly, it sounds like the way that shook out, he's lucky he didn't kill her. Like, that stuff can really happen. It does happen. We see it with athletes. We see it with all these different factions where testosterone seems to be part of the culprit. So we don't need extra testosterone. Like, if you already have testosterone, you don't need extra. Like, if you have low T, obviously you do. Okay. But like, a lot of times if you're a regular person who already is producing testosterone and you introduce more into your system, it becomes a real serious violent problem.
Hormonal imbalances is like, though, that's real shit, man. Like,
it's very real.
And I don't know enough
about it. And how we
it
avoid it. Like, that's the thing. Like, we need to talk. Like, my whole thing is be aware of it. Like, maybe don't do that stuff. You probably look fine. Just work out, drink coffee. Like, don't do any of that stuff because that whatever's in there. And actually, it was funny when I was still with my partner. His doctor told him to stop taking it.
Really?
Yes. And he wouldn't. He was like, well, I feel better when I take it. I'm like, that's drugs. That's how drugs work. You're getting withdrawal, and then once you get the drug, you feel better. But like, crazy. You need to leave that stuff alone.
The fact that you're saying this, I came and I didn't read the full article. I'm gonna see if I can find them. But it was something about somebody who got off of drugs, but started taking this pre-workout stuff and was addicted and couldn't stop. And I was like, oh, that's interesting.
It has the doctor said that's a lot of that stuff has a lot of caffeine.
Okay.
And so
caffeine can
his suggestion was like he needed to have less caffeine intake, and that would be a way to cut it out. But he was like, nah.
No, this is the perfect amount for me.
I was just like, okay, well, we pay thousands of dollars for nothing.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, all I want to say is, guys, this book was a lot.
It's amazing.
It was very good, but be prepared.
I wasn't prepared.
Journey. I was not.
You guys, I cried so much at so many different times. Like, had to stop what I was doing and cry. Like, I had to do. But what helped me was box breathing. You can Google it and how you take the
1, 2.
Yes, box breathing does work. It feels too simple.
Yeah, it is.
But it does work.
Yeah.
And I had to do that yesterday before I went into a social thing.
Well, because if you have to think about your breathing, something that comes natural, there's really nothing else you can think about when you're doing it. So I think that helps just to sort of like
reset you. It's like a hard reset. Like sometimes your phone needs a hard reset.
Yeah.
Your brain sometimes needs a hard reset, and it's okay. And it's okay to feel weird and bad. It happens.
Yeah. There's still joy. You guys, I think we need a hard reset right now. I think we should take a break, you guys.
Hard agree.
There's a lot going on. We'll be back. You guys, so welcome back from the break. That was much needed. I'm just saying, it's a lot, friend.
Did we, are you guys still here?
They're here still.
They're still here.
You guys
Thank you guys. Like, we really appreciate it. We know it's hard to hear. I didn't know it was going to be like this.
I didn't either. Yeah, this was a really great book. I enjoyed it a lot. I would definitely recommend this book. I think people who would like this book, if you like a gritty coming of age story, if you like, the realness of the human experience.
If you like Donald Goines and Iceberg Slim novels, this would be a modern one.
And Kat, what do you think? Who do you think would like this book? That's who I think would like it.
People who are fans of good writing, people who are, fans of the Donald Goines, Iceberg Slim genre of pimp culture and street culture.
Okay.
Because those were all kind of written back in this, 60s, 70s, but it's amazing how the same stuff is still going on because it's still people.
Yeah.
And that's why books are great, because it gives you the whole game.
Yeah, and this is kind of like, I guess, a more contemporary sort of take on it, because it's 2021 was when it was published, so it's very current. So, yeah, I think if you like those kinds of stories, or if maybe you're not sure if you like these stories, this is maybe a good one to pop into to kind of like pop your cherry.
And it's a way to learn about human trafficking for real, not the Hollywood version of what they think human trafficking is. What human trafficking it is, a lot of times the victims aren't people that you think of as victims.
Yeah, absolutely. Any closing thoughts with this book? Like, do you have any, I don't know.
Let me see. Let me scour my notes. I know, right? Because there was so much. I would say again, if you like this book, check out Girls Like Us, which is fighting for a world where girls are not for sale, a memoir. So that'll be a real life version of something that's very similar to the story, and it's someone who got out of the life and is helping other people get out of the life now. Nightcrawling. This reminded me a lot of Cola Booth.
Did it?
It did, because she suffered a lot of sexual assault at the hands of people more powerful than her, and a lot of and she was given the same advice of, well, why didn't you just leave?
Right.
It's like, okay, you get in that position and you just leave.
Right.
Let's see how you do it. Houdini yourself out of it, bitch. And this was a quote I really loved. When she was going to testify in the grand jury, and the lawyer wanted to go in the elevator, and she was feeling a lot of claustrophobia, and she was like, oh, let's just take the stairs. And she's like, you really want to walk up 6 flights of stairs? And she was like, I don't mind a little sweat if it means the freedom of my own 2 feet. And that to me really struck me, because there's sometimes in life where I'm like, I have no...
Yeah, the elevator would be easier. But
I have to use my... Yeah, sometimes freedom is more work.
Yeah. I would venture to say every single time.
Yeah.
Like, not just sometimes. Like, freedom is more work. Like,
Freedom is more work.
There's a trade-off. You're going to sweat a bit. But it feels good, you know? Like, it feels definitely really good. I like that. I like it.
Thank you.
I think for me, overall, there's just so many themes explored, you know what I'm saying, that sort of, you know, tap into the human experience that we all have. So that's what I think makes this a relatable story. So, like, even if you never met anybody who's been in these situations, or if you can't relate on a personal level, I think that the humanity, like the way that she made these characters in the book, like, you can understand, like how you were saying earlier, like, I wanted to hate Marcus, but I also, you know, which is her brother, I understand how he felt. And I think, like, in life, we need more of that. Like, I think this is why, you know, sharing stories is great, because it's easy to look at somebody and, like, sum them up, you know, because of one choice they made, or here's this one thing, or here are these statistics that we have on you. But it's always more complicated than that. And the impact of our lived experiences really do inform the way we think and move in the world. And so I think this story was just really beautiful in a lot of ways, because you just felt all the goddamn feelings. Okay, you felt them all.
I cried so
and
much.
It was a lot. I was dangerously close to shedding tears. I did have to push pause, because I was like, oh no, oh no.
That scene when
sad.
Trevor started collapsing.
That one, yes, that's what got me. And
when he was like, I'm just so lonely.
It was
that
so sad. And even though we spoiled the book, you guys, like, I think if you listen to it or read it, there's so many parts that we can't even, like, get into, that you'll still feel like, oh my gosh, like,
it's achingly beautiful.
It really is. And so I do want to end it with just feeling like we didn't really delve into Ale and Kira's relationship, but that was actually like a really nice little life raft of just love and affection and joy,
purity.
Just the purity of just, like, when
of
you
youth.
Find your person,
yeah.
and, like, just the optimism that exists in even spaces of despair. So good job. You know, this was a really well-written book. And I was really happy to read it, even though I didn't know I was going to go down this road. It was a good book.
It was probably the best way to get me to go down it. Because if I had known, I probably would have been like, no.
And I had to drag her, and she would have still came. But
yeah, it was definitely worth the pain.
Definitely. So,
do you want to spin the wheel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Spin it.
Okay, I've been waiting for this for a long time. We are going to read a selection from Hilarity Ensues by Tucker Max. He has the uncensored Miss Vermont story, which is one of my favorite pieces of written literature of all time, quite honestly.
Do you hear how excited she is right now?
I'm super duper excited. It's just going to be it's basically just a short story, but it's true. And it also helps to springboard a little bit off of today's episode, which was kind of like what happens when we suppress human sexuality and the consequences of that. Because, this is the thing I forgot to mention. So I feel like a lot of the anxiety we have around talking about sex in our culture is what leads to a lot of the problems we have around sex in our culture. And one of the things that to me is strange that is still a thing is the stigma around masturbation. Masturbation is healthy and natural. There's like a line in the Bible that says it's better to spill your seed into the belly of a whore than the ground. And that's sort of the precedent that has been used from the religious anti-masturbation stance that is very pervasive in our society. That's just not a good rule to live by. Masturbation is healthy, natural, and should be done in private. And I remember Dr. Jocelyn Elders got fired for saying that in the 90s. She was the Surgeon General, and she got fired for saying that, even though it's true. Like, it's true.
Wait, she got fired, and then they said, why did they say they fired her?
This was the 90s. You get fired because she said that masturbation is healthy and natural.
Right. So it's unhealthy and unnatural?
No, she just said it. And she was black too. She's a black woman. So, you know, it's the whole thing. We're not in safe environments to tell the truth.
So should we be scared?
I mean, we should always be scared because life is dangerous, but we should rejoice because we have each other.
And we should also be scared because we have each other.
Well, we're always going to feel scared, but then that's why we're brave, like Harry Potter and Gryffindor. Like there's no bravery without fear. So yes, we're scared,
So
but
be scared and do it anyway.
But just do it anyway. Like tell the
Wow.
truth. There's nothing wrong with masturbating. It's much better than sexually assaulting
Spilling
an
your
underage
seed
girl.
into the belly of a
Yeah, it's not okay just because this person is a sex worker. They no longer have humanhood. That's not how it works.
I kept thinking they were going to say Kiara was pregnant just based on how she was
Me
eating and
too,
stuff.
because she never mentioned getting
And
on
she-
birth control.
no, and I was like, she's pregnant.
Because she
She's
mentioned being
pregnant.
nauseous
She
one time
did.
too.
She did.
And I
was
felt like that was the subtext because it's like, what are you doing
She needs to go to Planned
it
Parenthood.
wasn't given responsibility, So yeah, I don't think these guys were strapping up.
another little thing there. So that's another reason why. Yeah,
And then the cycle continues because how are you going to support this child? Universal basic income, guys.
look it up. Okay?
Yeah, and it does decrease the birth rates.
Does it?
Yeah, and it's actually an issue they're having in countries that have this, like in Japan and Europe. They have lower birth rates.
Oh yeah,
because they're like, yeah, it takes money to raise these kids.
it does. You guys,
And that's not just money. It takes a
true.
huge emotional, physical, and spiritual toll on you. It's worth it, and I love it, but you better be prepared.
Wow! Wait a minute. Was that Aladdin?
That was Lion King.
Oh, that was Scar.
That was Scar. Yes.
Oh
it was
my
Scar.
God! Listen, I knew it
Yes,
was Disney. It
but
was
you
giving
should
Disney.
be. You're not. No matter what you think you're prepared for, you're not prepared.
I hate you so much. We're leaving now. She did not just sing be prepared. Good day. You guys, thank you so much. We're going to get out of here, okay? The champagne's kicking in, and it's a holiday, and we're going to get back to our families, you guys. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully you come back again next week, friend. We did it. Another fun episode, you guys. Fake Ass Book Club. Peace.
Before we go, we must give thanks to Urban Nerd for providing our music, and legal services were handled by Trezanae M. Atkins. If you like what you heard, please feel free to join us every Wednesday for another Fake Ass Book Club. Cheers.
Thank you guys for listening. You can check us out at thefabpodcast.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast wherever you're listening right now. We want to hear from you. Come put it in our life. Thanks again. And until next time, peace, love, and the Fake Ass Book Club. We out.